and thank you for joining me. Today's topic, we're going to focus on the quote from Bruce Lee, which is to know oneself, you cannot be controlled by fear or other people's opinion. And that is so true. And it's definitely a lesson that I feel has been learned from Black History Month for many people, that have been able to move past the suppressive mindset and the psychological warfare that is discrimination and hate that comes from discrimination, and how to navigate that and not to fall victim to that type of psychological warfare and the minimization of you as a human and what makes you great, which is your human ability and capability and greatness. And that all focuses on being self aware, and knowing who you truly are, accepting who you truly are, and loving who you truly are. Only then can you be released from fear or other people's opinions. And that is something that I've been speaking about since the beginning of the month and throughout these talks, is the understanding of fear and how to navigate fear, and how fear is a tool used to keep you in that suppressed mind state, and the acceptance of suppressive thought and suppressive actions, and also to hold others back along with yourself and not being able to move forward, which is why we still are dealing with the atrocities of the systemic system that's been upheld since the beginning of time, to allow for suppression to continue, for those to maintain power, that few to maintain power. And we see it in so many spaces and in so many incidences. I think the most recent, I just put a video up, but a most recent and real time incident or example is the BAFTA Awards and the response from the BAFTA Awards, which only came after backlash. And the strength and knowingness and the self love of both Michael B. Jordan and Delroy, and their capability to not cower, and become fearful, and to just ignore people's opinions. That takes a lot of growth and tenacity, self-awareness, and self-love. And that's something that many lack, where you can stand in the face of discrimination and hate, and not cower, but to look it dead in the eye and to stand true and firm, and to not come out of character, and be who you truly are, and what makes you great. What makes you great. What makes you great. And that's a prime example. And if you look, you see a lot of people speaking on it, and how they would not have been able to, stand in the face of that type of action. And then when we look at that, the backlash that comes from it, you can see that that focused mainly on the outrage that came from just it being viewed as acceptable. But that's another talk that I've been speaking on throughout, of how those types of actions are minimized, and that comes from intent, and how the intention, you know, makes the individual acting in that way be viewed as a victim, versus those that are being victimized and actually the harm has been caused towards them. But that's something that I've already been speaking about. And the only way for anyone to truly, stand in the face of such negativity is to be self-aware and to understand their greatness, to look hate and evil in the eye and not cower from it. That's true strength. That's having an understanding of yourself, as Bruce Lee said. I'll repeat the quote again because it's such a magnetic and strong quote that we all should live by. So, to know oneself, you cannot be controlled by fear or other people's opinions. And that's such a true thing. Mind you, we all have free will, and we all have our right to our own opinion. But that doesn't mean that your opinion is righteous. It doesn't mean that your opinion is rooted in truth. It doesn't mean that your opinion makes you better than someone else. And that's one thing where a lot of people that live in the oppressor mindset think that it's okay to force what they deem as righteous, as a way to make others fearful. And that's so just ignorant in itself. Why should I be fearful of what you think? Why should I be fearful because you hate me, but you don't know why you hate me? You just hate me because you've been taught to hate me. So it in itself is hilarious and comical if you are a higher level thinker. So why is this important? This has been important because, you know, it's about being truly comfortable about who you are and being comfortable in your skin. Not many people can do that. Not many people in this world can truly be comfortable in who they are and why they are and what makes them who they are. This is why we have such a vanity complex now within humanity, right? Of how we should be looking a certain way. Because if we look a certain way, it makes us feel a certain way. We appear a certain way, which elevates us in certain spaces, which goes into the systemic mindset as well, that if I look a certain way, I should be I should be rewarded. I should be expected, or I'm deemed to be more knowledgeable, more competent. I'm deemed to be perceived as more capable, versus me looking a certain way or appearing a certain way. So it's not just, and that's where people fall off, is because they assume that because you look a certain way, that means that you are capable or that you are great. And that's where this whole ridiculousness of inequity and suppressive mindset continues to follow us into the future, because how you look doesn't determine how great you are, or the biases around appearance or backgrounds of someone doesn't necessarily mean that someone's going to be capable or great or any better than anyone else. Our individuality is what makes us great. And you understanding that and being rooted in that and having a strong structure and foundation in the understanding of the person that you are is what's going to elevate you into the world. It's not you know, you following along the lines with what other people are doing. Because even if you do achieve some sort of greatness, it's not going to be lasting or worthy, because you're more than likely going to be unhappy. Because true success comes from happiness. Happiness, not content, as in I'm rich and I have all this and that, but actual true happiness, and the ability to live in that happiness and experience that happiness, and be immersed in that. But that fear, as I've mentioned, and being controlled by fear and not being rooted in the self-love that you have within yourself, is why we have code switching. It's why people remain silent in workspaces and in different environments. And it's why we allow others to have permission over our thoughts and minds and actions. And those are the things that hold us back. This is what holds society back, by us not taking charge and being rooted in what makes us great, and us accepting who we are and not forming or conforming because we deem that would be more acceptable, or we deem that makes you appear to be something of that. And that all of that is controlled. As I said, this is all a form of psychological warfare, and your inability and in holding you into an ability to move forward. So it's a great way for you to really reflect on how you have allowed yourself to be controlled by fear. What actions have prevented you from really being great because of fear of what others think? That's something you should deeply reflect on, and how that fear is rooted in what other people assume or perceive of you. That's a true hindrance to not only our capability as a society moving forward, but also us individually in our lives and in our professional careers. When you show up in your workspace, what is holding you back? What is preventing you from truly moving forward? Who within those spaces is having you operate in fear? The dog is wanting to get in. Hold on. Who in those spaces is holding you back, or resulting in you not being able to take action because of fear of what others think? That is the lesson to be learned. That in itself is the self-reflection that we all should do and have about ourselves. Where do we hold ourselves back, professionally and personally? And how is those thoughts and how we are afraid to move forward? How is that being impacted based on other people's perception or thoughts of us? No one's thought of you or the fear of what someone's thought of you should hold you back. You should be moving forward because of what you believe and not what someone else believes. How you view yourself is more important than how other people view you. How you show up as you, not as how other people perceive you, is more important than what other people assume of you. How you walk into spaces and dominate should be based on what you view of yourself and not what others view of you. That's true success. That is true capability. Competency does not come from how others accept you. Competency comes from how you accept yourself and your willingness to continuously learn and be great and not be swayed by what is acceptable, but what you're willing to create and are able to create. That's true innovation. Innovation and all the technologies and things we have in the world, different thoughts and ideologies and how we move forward in society, it comes from those that aren't rooted in fear. It comes from those who aren't afraid to stay, but willing to go and grow. It's not about what someone else perceives or what society deems as acceptable. You have to remember that a lot of the ideas that we live by and are governed by are based on the expected best practice. They are not based on what truly is or what can be, because there's always a future from the present. And the future from the present is not the same as the present. It's the idea of growth from the present, the idea of movement. And it all starts from us as individuals, loving ourselves truly, not being controlled by fear, and not being rooted in other people's opinions. This is why we are still stuck in the past and not learning the lessons of the past. The lessons of the past are the guide to the future. It's a map. You just got to know how to read it. And it's the only reason we can't move forward and truly find our way in the darkness is because we're too focused on ignoring the human emotion. That harm that we put upon people just so others can prevail. That's rooted in evil, it's rooted in greed, and it's rooted in the need for power. As if power is not something that we all contain and are capable of and have in our own right, because when you are living in a controlled mindset of fear, focusing on other people's opinions, that means you've given up your power. You've given up what's made you great for the acceptance of others. Worrying about what leadership says you should be, what culture rewards and punishes. Trying to survive and navigate through something that isn't real only because it's deemed to be real, because it's socially acceptable, but not true, real reality. Just a fictitious system operating on an illusion that one is better than the other. Social words and slurs of others are deemed unacceptable, but the words of others that look like me are acceptable or minimized, as if it doesn't create harm. That's one lesson that should have been learned from this BAFTA Awards experience that everyone's talking about. The minimization of hate while victimizing those that create the hate. One thing that is definitely learned. And also the understanding that racism is expensive. It is expensive. When you see how corporations run to silence backlash, it's because they know, oh, the money's about to leave. Because racism is expensive. It's expensive. It has taken out numerous corporations. But even though it's expensive, they still ain't learned. Still truly haven't learned. Willing to take that loss and that write-off. Because there's no true accountability. And that is also something that has to be accepted and understood. That accountability will occur. But it's all on how we move forward and truly not being fearful. As I've said from the beginning of these talks, which is not being fearful and not giving a damn what other people think. That is the only way to move forward. That is the only way that you know that you are truly rooted in self-love. Because when you truly love yourself, nobody's words can truly harm you or make you fearful or hold you back. Because you know where you are welcomed and you know where you aren't welcomed, and you're willing to move forward into spaces where you truly belong and are accepted and recognized, praised, and rewarded. And that only comes from true self-love of self and the willingness to invest in yourself and not others. Putting yourself first. That's true leadership. And that doesn't mean not realizing how it impacts others. It's just recognizing that you go first. In the emergency, you got to protect yourself first before you can protect anybody else. So in order for you to do that is to have self-love. How can you not protect yourself but others? That doesn't mean you really don't love yourself. You willing to kill over for the survival of others. So that means you're putting other people before you, and you cannot do that. You're not here to give up for the sake of others. You're here to move forward and create change and lead others. And that's what you need to start doing today. Well, I hope that you enjoy this talk, and thank you for joining me. I'll be back in again tomorrow. And remember, be the change. Love yourself and others. Bye.